Okay, let's unpack this. If I take a heavy rock and a light feather, right?
Right.
And I tie them together with a piece of string and just drop them off a balcony, do they fall faster or slower than the rock would by itself?
It sounds like a trick question, but that exact mental puzzle actually shattered a 2,000-year-old scientific mistake.
It's wild. So today we are taking a deep dive into completely demystifying classical mechanics.
Yes, we are.
We're stripping away all those terrifying chalkboard-filling differential equations and revealing the surprisingly intuitive, elegant rules that just govern everything in the universe.
Absolutely everything.
And our guide for this is a wonderfully relatable Norwegian textbook called Hard du Draget.
Which translates to, do you have the pole?
Exactly. It's by a physicist named Per Thorvaldsen. And this whole journey we're going on today revolves around one incredibly simple, almost boring thread, the tension of a string.
Yeah, and if you are listening to this right now, I really want you to change your mental backdrop. Like, erase that image of a dusty university lecture hall. We just aren't doing that today.
Yeah, definitely not.
Instead, imagine you are standing in the middle of a brightly lit, totally bustling modern shopping mall. Smooth tile floors, people pushing carts, escalators humming in the background.
I can picture it.
Because we are taking these super abstract theories and bringing them right down to the messy, hilarious reality of your everyday life. Physics, it isn't just an elite language for academics.
Right.
It is simply a lens for seeing the hidden mechanics of your daily routine.
And what's really fascinating here is the author's own candid admission right up front.
Oh yeah, that part is great.
I mean, despite being an actual physicist, he admits he spent years hiding his lack of, deep intuitive understanding behind complicated math and excuses.
Right, he could do the equations, but he didn't really feel it in his bones until a specific teaching strategy unlocked it for him.
Which brings us back to that rock and the feather. Because before we can build our understanding of the universe, we have to gather our tools.
Yes.
But you don't need a multi-million-dollar particle accelerator to do physics. Sometimes you literally just need a comfortable chair in your imagination.
The thought experiment. It really is the ultimate laboratory.
It is.
And Galileo's thought experiment about gravity is arguably the greatest one ever conceived. I mean, for 2 millennia, everyone blindly accepted Aristotle's claim that heavy objects fall faster than light ones.
Because it intuitively makes sense to our human brains, right? Like a boulder drops, a feather floats, boom, science.
Exactly. But Galileo just sat down and found this incredible logical trapdoor. He imagined tying that heavy rock and light feather together with the string.
The string makes its first appearance.
Yes. And if Aristotle was right, the slower, lighter feather would act like a little parachute, pulling upward on the string and slowing the heavy rock down.
But, and here is where Galileo just completely dismantled a 2-millennium-old mistake without leaving his chair. If you tie them together, the total combined weight of that new system, like the rock, the string, and the feather, is heavier than the rock alone.
Right.
So according to Aristotle's own rule that heavier things fall faster, the combined system should plummet to the earth faster than the rock by itself.
Which is logically impossible. I mean, it would have to fall slower and faster at the exact same time.
It's just a brilliant paradox. He essentially proved that Aristotle's foundational rule was a complete contradiction.
He realized that, barring the resistance of the air we happen to breathe down here, everything in the universe must fall at the exact same rate.
And we actually saw this visually confirmed, decades ago, during the Apollo 15 moon landing.
Oh, that footage is incredible.
Astronaut David Scott stood in the absolute vacuum of space on the lunar surface, held out a heavy geological hammer in one hand and a light falcon feather in the other.
And he just drops them simultaneously.
And they hit the lunar dust at the exact same fraction of a second. I've seen that footage, and it almost looks fake. Like, it looks like CGI because our brains just aren't used to seeing it.
It really does mess with your head. But, the real hero of Galileo's original thought experiment wasn't the rock or the feather.
Wait, it was the string tying them together.
Exactly.
I always used to think of a string as just a dumb piece of twine, but in classical mechanics, it feels like a total cheat code. Why is the humble, seemingly boring string the ultimate star of the physicist's tool belt?
Well, because it allows you to move a force from point A to point B without adding a bulky, complicated mechanism to your math.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, that is precisely why it's the star. The tool belt also includes, basic items like a block, a weight, a pulley, a sphere, and a spring. But in physics, We are constantly trying to divide the chaotic universe into two very clean categories.
Okay, what are they?
The system you are currently studying and the environment around it. A string is the perfect force transporter. It lets the environment act on your isolated system incredibly cleanly.
But, isolating a system is where I think a lot of people start to panic.
Oh, absolutely.
The moment we start talking about string tension or the rules of the universe, people flash back to high school physics and just hit a brick wall.
They really do.
Thorvaldsen actually shares this hilarious story in the book about sitting across from a midwife at a dinner party.
Oh, right, the dinner party story.
Yeah. She's enthusiastically recounting all these high-stakes life-or-death deliveries she does. But the second she finds out he's a physicist, her face just goes pale.
She completely shuts down.
She immediately brings up her lingering trauma over trying to calculate string tension back in high school, like delivering babies. Fine. String tension? Terrifying.
It happens all the time. And the root of that trauma, honestly, is almost always a foundational misunderstanding of how Newton's laws of motion interact with each other.
How so?
People tend to blend them together into a confusing soup. So Newton's first and second laws, the rules about inertia and how force equals mass times acceleration, those apply to one single body.
Okay. So you draw a mental box around one specific object.
Yes, the classic free body diagram.
Yeah.
You isolate it, look at the forces pushing or pulling on it, and calculate what it does. But Newton's third law, the famous for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Right. So everyone knows that one.
Well, everyone quotes it, but they forget that it does not apply to a single body. It applies to the interaction between two different bodies.
Okay, wait. Let me push back on this a little bit because this specific rule always felt completely counterintuitive to me.
Sure, lay on that.
Let's say I walk up to a solid brick wall and I push it with 100 pounds of force. Newton's third law guarantees that the wall pushes me back with exactly 100 pounds of force, right?
Correct. The forces are perfectly equal and perfectly opposite.
Then why don't I fly backward?
What do you mean?
I mean, if I'm being shoved by a wall with 100 pounds of force, shouldn't my body physically accelerate away from it?
And right there, you are falling into the exact same trap that confused the midwife.
Oh no, really?
Yes. You are mixing up the systems, you're looking at the interaction between you and the wall, but then you're trying to determine the acceleration of just you.
Oh, okay.
If you want to know why you aren't flying backward, you have to draw that mental box around just your body and look at all the forces acting on it.
Okay, so yes, the wall is pushing me backward.
Right. But what is happening at your feet?
My shoes are gripping the floor.
Exactly. The friction between your rubber soles and the ground is actively pushing you forward.
Ah. So the forward push of the friction perfectly cancels out the backward push of the wall.
Got it?
My personal system sits at a net force of 0, so I don't move.
Precisely. If we suddenly, magically replace the floor under your feet with perfectly smooth wet ice, completely removing all that friction, and you push that wall, you absolutely would go sliding backward.
That makes so much sense.
We fail to understand Newton's laws intuitively because we live in a world absolutely dominated by friction and our brains just filter it out as background noise.
But here's where Galileo's thought experiments in a perfect vacuum kind of collide with our messy reality. The frictionless void is elegant, sure, but down here on Earth we are constantly fighting resistance.
Really are.
Which actually brings us back to that shopping mall we pictured earlier.
Yes.
Thorvaldsen has this great anecdote from May 2000. He is exhausted, he's wandering through a mall just trying to buy fish sticks for dinner.
A very relatable mission.
Right. And out of nowhere, a sporting goods salesman accosts him, tells him he needs some excitement in his life, and somehow convinces this tired fish stick-seeking physicist to strap on a pair of size 43 roller skates.
And suddenly he's just gliding past the food court feeling like an Olympian.
But because he's a physicist, he doesn't just enjoy the ride. His brain is working. He has this profound bodily realization about the 3 different types of friction.
Right. He feels the math.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're listening, imagine you are wearing those skates. When you are standing totally still and you push your foot sideways to start moving, the rubber wheel tightly grips the smooth tile.
That is static friction. It's a very strong bond, locking the two surfaces together.
Okay.
But if you push just a little too hard and that wheel slips sideways, breaking the bond, that's sliding friction.
And that's bad when you're on skates.
Very bad. It's much weaker than static friction, which is exactly why your foot shoots out from under you and you lose control and fall.
But the real magic happens when you turn your foot straight and actually glide forward. The wheels start turning. Suddenly you are experiencing rolling resistance.
Which is incredibly weak.
Yeah, a tiny push sends you flying past the store windows because the opposing force dragging you backward has almost entirely vanished.
You temporarily become that frictionless block in a high school textbook problem.
Which is so cool to think about.
It is. And feeling that acceleration without resistance is exhilarating. But to really understand how massive forces translate into physical sensation, we have to scale up from roller skates to, well, a commercial jet plane.
Oh, this is the story about his nephew.
Right. Thorvaldsen talks about sitting on a flight next to his 50-kilogram nephew. And the kid absolutely loves that feeling during takeoff where you get violently pressed back into your seat.
I mean, who doesn't love that? But the math behind that feeling is staggering when you actually break it down.
It really is. Let's translate the numbers into the physical reality of what your body endures. You are sitting in a 70,000-kilogram airplane on the runway.
Okay.
Your body has mass, which means it has inertia. It wants to stay exactly where it is. It does not want to move.
Right, lazy body.
Exactly. But when the pilot throttles up, the jet engines hurl exhaust backward with immense power. And Newton's third law dictates that the air immediately shoves the plane forward, with roughly 720,000 newtons of force.
Which is a huge number. And that force travels through the chassis of the plane straight into your seat.
Right. And because your body's inertia wants to stay still, you feel like you are being pushed backward into the cushion.
But you aren't.
No. The plane's seat is literally accelerating into your spine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And when you calculate it out force divided by mass, that plane is accelerating down the runway at 10.3 meters per second squared.
Which is wild, because Earth's gravity only accelerates us downward at 9.81 meters per second squared.
Exactly.
That means the horizontal shove of the airplane seat pushing the nephew forward is actually stronger than the gravity pulling him down into the Earth. He's experiencing more than one full G of horizontal force.
And here's where it gets really interesting. What's beautifully counterintuitive about this is that whether it's the jet engine pushing from behind or, let's say, a theoretical giant string pulling the plane from the front.
The giant string again.
Always the string. But the physical result is identical. In classical mechanics, pushing and pulling are the exact same thing when you calculate acceleration. A force vector only cares about magnitude and direction.
So if you're out there listening, the next time you are pushing a shopping cart through that mall or dragging a suitcase behind you, the universe doesn't care which one you're doing. The math is identical.
Exactly identical.
But pushing and pulling in a straight line is really just the opening act, right? The world is full of things that don't go in straight lines. They rotate, they orbit, they crash into each other.
Which introduces a whole new set of rules.
Yes.
Rotational dynamics.
Yes.
And to really wrap our heads around this, we can look at the legendary Technics direct drive turntables from the 1970s, invented by Shuichi Obata.
I love this example so much. Anyone who knows the history of hip-hop knows the Technics. Early DJs who pioneered scratching and backspinning relied entirely on the physics of these specific machines.
They really did.
Yeah.
Because older record players used a little rubber belt to turn the platter, which meant if you put your heavy hand on the vinyl to pause it, the belt would slip or stretch. It ruined the timing.
But the Technics were direct drive. They had the motor built directly under the platter, giving them immense torque.
And torque is simply the rotational equivalent of linear force. It's what forces an object to twist around an axis.
Okay.
Because the magnetic torque in these direct drive motors was so high, the turntable could maintain a perfectly constant angular velocity, like a perfectly steady spin, even when a DJ was physically pressing down and dragging the record back and forth.
So the magnetic torque of the machine continuously overpowered the sliding friction of the DJ's hand.
Yes. The physics literally kept the beat perfectly locked in.
That is so cool. But using rotational dynamics to maintain control goes back way further than the birth of hip-hop, doesn't it?
Oh, way further. Think about the early days of the Industrial Revolution. James Watt had a massive problem with his steam engines.
Right, they were a bit unpredictable.
To say the least. If an engine generated too much steam, it would spin faster and faster until it literally tore itself apart, exploded. He needed a way to regulate the speed automatically.
So he invented the conical pendulum, or the governor.
Yes.
And it's this beautiful, weird-looking contraption. He attached two heavy metal spheres to the spinning center shaft of the engine using hinged metal arms.
And here is the physical mechanism of why it works. It's inertia again.
Okay.
As the shaft spins, those heavy metal spheres want to fly off in a perfectly straight line.
Because things want to go straight.
Right. But the hinged arms act just like our string from earlier. They pull the spheres continuously inward, forcing them into a circular path.
But as the engine spins faster, that straight line inertia fights harder against the hinge.
Exactly. The centrifugal effect forces the heavy spheres to swing outward and upward against gravity. And as they rise higher, the angle of those hinged arms physically pulls a lever that chokes off the steam valve.
It's pure genius. Like if the engine spins too fast, the balls rise and choke its own steam supply. The engine slows down, the balls drop, the valve opens back up, and the speed stabilizes. It is a completely mechanical feedback loop.
It's the birth of control engineering, really.
Mm.
All driven by the physics of spinning objects.
It's like the universe is constantly keeping a meticulous ledger of all these interactions, whether things are spinning, falling, or crashing into each other.
Oh, speaking of crashing, think about watching a game of snooker or billiards with your friends.
Yes, the perfect visual for an elastic collision.
Right, so in an ideal elastic collision, no kinetic energy is lost to heat or sound. Obviously, real life has a little, but imagine a perfect setup. A moving cue ball sliding across the felt and hitting a stationary target ball of the exact same mass, dead center.
The moving cue ball stops completely dead. It just freezes on impact.
Yes.
And the stationary ball immediately takes off with the exact same speed and direction the cue ball just had.
It is a flawless transfer of momentum. As you said, it's the universe's ultimate accounting system. The laws of conservation, the conservation of momentum, of energy, of angular momentum, they are totally non-negotiable.
And they don't just apply to bar games.
No, they dictate the movement of tectonic plates, the orbits of planets, the collision of entire galaxies. The accounting must always balance.
But honestly, if you sit down and try to actually do that accounting, if you try to map out every vector, every angle of a collision, and the constantly changing forces of a complex system using just Newton's laws,
It is a mathematical nightmare.
yeah, it sounds awful.
It absolutely is. Relying strictly on forces means you have to use complex calculus and differential equations. You have to track how the force changes at every microscopic fraction of a second. It is a grueling grind.
But, and this is the best part of Thorvaldsen's book, there is a way out. The ultimate physicist cheat code.
Yes, there is.
You don't actually have to calculate the forces at all.
No, you don't. Because in physics, the end often justifies the means. You can bypass all those grueling force calculations entirely and solve the problem just by looking at the energy budget.
Okay, let's walk through an example. Take a swinging pendulum, like in a grandfather clock.
Perfect example.
If you want to know exactly how fast that heavy brass weight is moving at the very bottom of its swing, Newton's laws make it agonizing, because as the pendulum swings, the angle of the string is constantly changing.
Right.
That means the slice of gravity pulling it forward is changing every millimeter. You'd need serious calculus to add up all those shifting forces.
It's a headache. But if you use the conservation of energy instead, it becomes simple, elegant algebra.
How so?
You just freeze the pendulum at two distinct moments in time. First, look at it at the very top of its swing, right before it reverses direction. For a microscopic fraction of a second, it is completely motionless.
Right, its velocity is zero, which means its kinetic energy is zero.
Yes, but because it is lifted up against gravity, its potential energy is at its absolute maximum.
Okay, got it.
Now, fast forward and freeze the pendulum at the very bottom of the arc.
It's at its lowest point, so its height is basically zero. That means its potential energy has dropped to zero.
Exactly. But it is whipping through the air at its absolute fastest, meaning its kinetic energy is now at its maximum.
Okay.
And because the universe keeps a perfect ledger and energy cannot be destroyed, the potential energy at the top is perfectly exactly equal to the kinetic energy at the bottom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you just set those two simple algebraic values equal to each other, the mass cancels out on both sides, and you effortlessly find your speed.
No calculus required.
None at all.
And that is really the ultimate takeaway here. What does this all mean for you listening at home? Physics isn't actually about torturing yourself with terrifying strings of numbers. It's about finding the most elegant, simple perspective to solve a problem.
That's beautifully said.
It's stepping back and realizing that the universe isn't trying to trick you. It is just operating on a strict, balanced budget.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this energy budget applies to absolutely everything. It dictates the speed of a yo-yo unschooling from your hand, the moon holding its orbit around the Earth, and comets slingshotting around the sun.
It's universal.
Literally. Assuming non-conservative forces like friction aren't bleeding the mechanical energy away as heat, the underlying math of our reality is shockingly beautifully simple.
We really have covered so much ground today. We started with Galileo using pure logic to outsmart Aristotle.
Without leaving his chair.
Right. We put you on roller skates in a mall to feel the physical grip of static friction and strapped you into a commercial jet to feel your own inertia fighting the acceleration of a takeoff.
We explored how direct drive motors and steam engine governors harness the power of rotation.
And how you can bypass agonizing math just by trusting the universe's energy ledger.
But there is one final staggering consequence to this energy accounting system that we really can't ignore.
Oh.
Well, the text establishes that in an isolated system, total energy is perfectly conserved.
Right.
Changes forms, but it is never created,
Yeah.
and it is never destroyed.
Okay, yes. We established that.
Now, scale that concept up to its absolute limit.
Yeah.
Imagine the entire universe as one giant, completely isolated system.
Oh, wow.
That means every single movement you make, every beat of your heart, every electrical thought firing in your neurons, and every star burning in the night sky
Yeah.
is powered by the exact same finite pool of energy that burst into existence at the very beginning of time.
That is heavy. It's all just being recycled.
Completely recycled. It is never lost. It is only ever borrowed, transferred from one account to another forever and ever. Which leaves you with a profound question.
What's the question?
Where will the energy you borrowed today go next?
Man. Now that is something to chew on the next time you push a shopping cart or watch a pendulum swing in a clock. Keep your eyes open to the invisible rules governing your world. You might just realize you have the pull. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Catch you next time.